Hello out there.
We're on the air.
It's Rink Moose talk tonight. The beers are cold.
The mics light up.
And the boys get set to fight. The gloves come off.
Opinions get thrown.
And someone slips on ice. One man howls.
The other scowls.
But the show must go on. Oh, the good old hockey game is the best game you can name. And the best game you can name is the good old hockey game.
You're an announcer with a long stick from time to time.
With hockey flows
And more shots known.
Pierre Maguire's life, not John's a leap,
Ovechkin's teeth.
and Hoffman's crazy wife. When Carey slumps,
And Bergevin stomps.
Duran's not LaFontaine. Jokes aside,
It's podcast time.
and Rink Moose is the name.
Oh, the good old hockey game is the best game you can.
Hello, everybody, and welcome. Live from the Rink Moose studio in Toronto, Ontario, Canada. We bring you episode 15 of the Rink Moose Hockey Podcast. For those of you who aren't familiar, the Rink Moose Hockey Podcast is a weekly episodic podcast where two good friends get together and discuss all things NHL, as well as their implications in the realm of fantasy hockey. I'm one of your hosts, Nick Costu, along with my good pal, the Grand Poobah himself, Kyle Nice. Kyle, how are you doing today?
Maestro Fresh West. Nicholas Costu, everybody. It's so good to be back in the studio. It feels like a long time because actually in this studio is where we made our very first episode. So it's like a homecoming of sorts. So I was scrolling on the internet the other day and, just scrolling through Twitter like I do on the Rink Moose Twitter, at Rink Moose. And I came across this funny video regarding the Ottawa Senators. Have you come across the same video yet?
I believe I did. It was late last night. I was just about to hit the hay and ran across this video of these schmucks. They looked like just a couple of schmucks sitting in a cab. Like, if we were just sitting in an Uber one day. And little did I know that these were actually members of the Ottawa Senators and on their recent road trip through Phoenix, Arizona.
So what do we have here? Let's break it down a little bit. So there were 7 players in the van. We got this Uber driver, and it appears that they're just coming back from maybe a night of at a restaurant. Perhaps there was some drinks involved. We don't know. Guys, we're just speculating here, but we're just. Where do we begin with this? I mean, it's quite the juicy news, and who else but the Senators, right, guys? I mean, come on. What have we been talking about all preseason? This, if anything, drama is to happen. It's the Ottawa Senators. So a couple parties come out looking very dirty after this one, very dirty indeed. And I just can't imagine what the dressing room is like. Let's go through some of these major quotes here from the video.
So we'll start with everybody's favorite player now, Matty Duchene.
Oh boy!
Before this video, seemed like a good moral Canadian boy. Happy to be playing for a Canadian market finally.
Yeah, likes his cottage.
Yeah, good old Muskoka cottage boy, and he had some juicy comments for us in this video, and I quote:
"Oh boy,
Marty Raymond, the only coach in NHL history to have the worst power play and the worst PK within a calendar year." He went on to say, "Here's the other thing too. We don't change anything ever. So why do we even have a meeting? I haven't paid attention in 3 weeks."
Ooh.
Which was response to Chris Weidman saying, "Do you notice that when Raymond runs the video, if you actually do pay attention, he doesn't ever teach you anything. He just commentates what's happening."
Man, oh man, I gotta say, I think of all these players in this car, I think Duchene comes out, well, Weidman too, but Duchene comes out looking like the biggest bad guy here. Now, the reason I say that, and I don't know, okay, let's get into the morality, let's jump out a little bit. Let's get into the morality of the situation, Nick, because, I'll give you my take. I agree with what everyone's saying that, yes, this happens. This probably happens on every NHL team in some form. Maybe not to this severity, maybe more. I mean, it probably happens in all sorts of ways. The problem is they did it in front of a public figure after stating who they were. Foolish. Absolutely foolish. You have to have some semblance of knowing that you're a celebrity in a way. You're a professional hockey player. All right? And second of all, where I have a problem here is that Matt Duchene, as a leader on this team, as he wears an A, as a veteran, is saying these things in the presence of young, impressionable rookies. Colin White, Formenton, Thomas Chabot. Is this really the culture you want to kind of establish with these guys? Now, I get maybe you have problems, and that's fine. But there's definitely a better way to address it. And it sounds to me like Duchene is airing his, not just Duchene, but everybody's just airing their dirty laundry, and it seems like they haven't actually addressed it with the coach himself. Because if he's not changing anything, it's probably because you haven't addressed the issue. So where I have a problem is that you've got a bunch of players here, some of them very young, some of them rookies, and you're just kind of shitting on the team, the system, the coaches. These are guys you're supposed to be respecting and listening to. So the culture is murky now. Like, how do you walk back into that dressing room and not feel this awkwardness every time? When Marty Ramon steps up to a whiteboard, how are you not all looking at each other like, ooh, this hurts, this is awkward as shit? Because it is. I mean, this is public now. It is a breach of privacy. I fully agree. I feel bad, but at the same time, they got to own this. They got to own it quickly. I mean, I saw the fucking half-ass apology letter. I wasn't impressed. And it's just like the culture and the dressing room is in utter turmoil, in my opinion.
And it's especially sad because this was a team who you thought was past all of this stuff. They issued the letter in September. Eugene Melnick had the sit-down with Borowiecki saying the culture has changed. Yeah. We're out of this mess. You know, we're back to being the Ottawa Senators of old. And yet here we are where this is the exact opposite from what you'd expect from those comments. I mean, to me, if there was really class in this organization and if Duchene really wanted, you know, to act professionally under these circumstances, you know, he would have just, you know, called Marty Raymond aside after one of those meetings and asked, hey, Marty, I kind of didn't understand this concept. Can you explain further? You know, they could have a one-on-one conversation. You know, they don't have to, you know, call him out in a public manner like this. I mean, at least it's now public. And it comes off as unprofessional. It comes off that there's turmoil in the dressing room, that there's a miscommunication, there's disconnect. It's just not healthy for a hockey team, and it's very ugly to see this come out. Now, what I will say in their defense is I'm sure this is a conversation that happens a lot more often than people think. I mean, there was a tweet by Ryan Whitney. Did you happen to see this tweet, Kyle?
I did. I think I did. He said this happens all the time.
Every team in NHL history has had a cab full of guys ripping the coach or GM. That's a fact. What a complete scumbag move releasing that video. So, hey, I got to agree with him because I'm sure this transcends past hockey. You know, I'm sure people have had things to say about coworkers and bosses and all sorts of private settings that they wish wouldn't leak publicly. And it's unfortunate that this happened to come, you know, into the public eye. It is almost, as Pierre Maguire today said, Orwellian. You know, there's no privacy. It's like Big Brother's watching over you all the time.
1984, Nick?
1984. That's what he referenced. You got to read that 1984. And you know, him being the English literature major, he had to drop that. But yeah, I mean, so I guess there's two perspectives here. The first being, you know, clearly, you know, this is something that probably shouldn't have been leaked in the first place. It's unfortunate that it did. It probably, you know, this is something that happens a lot more often than we think. But the reality is it now is out there, and now the Ottawa Senators have to address this debacle, this social media debacle. And I think the only way they do that is if, they clean up their act on the ice. I don't think things they say off the ice are going to reverse or remedy this situation. But I think if on the ice they start to get their act together and you start to see kind of what you saw 2 years ago with the Craig Anderson, wife with cancer situation, that you get some kind of character, some kind of jolt in this team, then maybe that can kind of remedy the situation here. But I mean, they're in a dark hole now, and I can only hope they can play themselves out of this.
Yeah, just when we thought that Ottawa had risen out of the mud that they were in the preseason, we thought, maybe people had forgotten about all the shit that we talked and the media talked about them, and here it is again, just a mud bath. But you did make the point that Whitney said this happens on any NHL team. People criticize the coach. I fully get behind that point, but I fail to agree with the fact that, big leaders and key leaders on teams are going to allow this kind of criticism to happen, especially among young players. Like, I don't know if we're going to have a big leader like Sid Crosby, laughing and joking about how bad the team is. It's never going to happen. Blake Wheeler, that's never going to happen. Patrice Bergeron, Zdeno Chara, never going to happen. Anze Kopitar, never going to happen. Like, this is what I'm talking about. It's just it shows a lack of leadership. It's unfortunate that it came out. And another thing this brings up is it's going to bring some free agency trouble. I mean, they've just aired out that the team doesn't respect the coach. They don't respect the system. Free agents are going to avoid Ottawa like the plague, it sounds like. And they were already going to do that, and now it's even worse, I fear. So that doesn't help the squad at all. The other thing is, as just a side fact, Duchesne might be losing some money on the table here come free agent signing. It doesn't appear he's going to stick with the team. That seems pretty logical at this point. And I don't know if I'm going to extend him a full offer, a full market value for this player after I'm hearing this. Like, whether it happens all the time or not, it's just now he's got this label where you are this guy in the dressing room who's not going to respect the coach all the time, and you're not going to, be on the winning side. So out of everybody here, Nick, I think Duchesne takes a huge hit here, and I feel bad for this Marty Ramon character. I'm sure he's a fantastic guy. I don't know about his body of work or anything, but it's not a nice way for you to find out that people don't respect your system. You know what I mean?
Sure, yeah, and I think the same can be said about Chris Weidman. He's not obviously not at the echelon or the name brand factor of a Duchesne, and so maybe this guy wasn't even going to have a job after this season. Who knows, given his play on the ice. But, obviously he's front and center here, sitting in the front seat in this video. Probably dropped the most F-bombs of anyone.
Yeah.
And, I would not be surprised in the slightest if you see Duchesne and Weidman getting the boot. I know, Shabbat's there too, but I think he's just too much of a talent to overreact over something like this. But I think with Duchesne being an impending UFA and Weidman kind of being a fringe 5'6" defenseman already as it is, I think you can very well make the argument that we may have very well seen the last of these two infamous characters.
Yeah, that's another interesting point, is what action will the organization take? It's a really, because it's never really been seen before, it's a really interesting scenario. Do they take public action, or is this an internal thing? Or are we going to have to wait till free agency or the end of the year to see what happens? There's going to be, some consequences whether we see it or not, but I'm definitely interested to see how the Senators play tonight, whether it's just a shit show or whether they play well because they want to overcome all this. What I don't think is, I don't think they're going to be in the middle. I think they're going to go one or the other, really bad or pretty darn good. So, yeah, we'll keep an eye on it. But, yeah, just some numbers on Chris Weidman here. Is a career high 17 points in 16-17 in 76 games. So, yeah, just not a good look for these guys. But, yeah, on the same side, like, we are seeing both sides here. Like, we do feel for these guys. We've probably all done this in some form. But you got to realize you're professional hockey players. Like, it's just, there's a smart way of doing things. They didn't go the smart way, So yeah, anything else to say on the Senators, man? Like,
I mean,
can't believe these guys.
other than just to stay tuned and seeing what happens from this. You know, like you said, either they'll be at the bottom, the pit of the standings, or this will, you know, kind of, they'll come together after this video and form kind of a bond, and maybe we'll see something like we saw 2 years ago. It's going to be either one or the other. There's going to be no middle ground. If everyone listened to our predictions episode, we are of the belief it's going to be at the bottom. But of course, we didn't expect this. We didn't expect this social media thing to just, you know, blow up in our faces. So I just, you know, on a parting note here, I'd just say stay tuned. A lot more reason to watch this team now, both on and off the ice.
Yep.
And we see what happens.
Yeah. This is a true test of now. It showed a little bit of character there, but it's a true test of character to see if you can get out of this. If you can, then kudos. Like, you overcame something really embarrassing and really big. So, yeah, we're definitely gonna watch them tonight. Tonight's Tuesday, and yeah, we'll keep our eye on them. But wanted to get to another game of this past week. It was a absolute beauty, Nick. It was the Colorado Avalanche versus Vancouver. A high-scoring, high-talent, just full-octane affair. We saw the McKinnon line just go absolutely crazy. We saw two horrible, horrible goalies. Just seeing, you know, who's worse out of the two of us. I'll show you. And we saw a kid, a young Swedish kid with blonde hair and a fresh face. We saw him transform in front of our eyes into this figure in the NHL now that, you know, people are now going to have to pay attention to this guy because what we saw in that game is undeniable talent. What are your thoughts on Elias Petterson and the game itself?
Well, I think if he hadn't had a coming out party before this, then this was certainly the coming out party.
Indeed.
For Elias Petterson, however you want to pronounce the name. I heard there's been lots of controversy over that. But nonetheless, it was a fantastic game. You obviously, I think the two highlights are the long stretch pass off the boards to Besser. I mean, that's a play where not only is it, you know, executing the play that's huge, but it's just the confidence to make it in the first place. Because, you know, I'm sure a guy like Nikolai Goldobin isn't just going to fire the puck down the ice and hope Brock Besser picks it up, you know? He doesn't have the swagger or the confidence to make that play.
No.
But the fact that this kid just does that with no fear or anything of that sort whatsoever, he just trucks it down the ice, pin perfect to Besser. Besser goes top corner. It was just a magical play, as Pierre Maguire would say.
That was just a magical play.
Yeah, there you go. I'm sure we'll hear that lots in the coming years here. And the second thing is obviously tying the game with under 40 seconds left. I mean, that was huge. He already had, 3 assists going into that moment there. He had the goal and 3 assists. And, he's fed the puck about at the hash marks, and he ties the game up with under 40 seconds left. And if you hear the Colorado broadcaster at that moment, he is crushed. When he scores, it's something along the lines of, quote, Petterson, no, golly. It was fantastic. Another reason to love the Colorado broadcast team, but nonetheless, I mean, it was a magical moment, and fun game. He obviously tied the game, went on to assist in the game winner. And, the Canucks all of a sudden are, I believe, 3 games over 500. They play tonight in Detroit, so that'll be another easy matchup, hopefully. And hopefully they keep this going, right?
What is going on in the NHL, Nick? The last time I checked, the Canucks were, I think, first. In the Pacific. I could not believe my eyes. And I think I found my new ringtone now, by the way. The golly thing. Holy shit. But, Petterson here, my gosh, 15 points in 9 games now. O-Dog from TSN, Jeff O'Neill, he went on to say on the radio show that right now, Petterson would be in the Hart conversation, and he believes that he can be in the Hart conversation at the end of the year. Is there any merit to this, Nick? I mean, hot start, crazy shooting percentage. We know that. Just bursting into the league, people can get a little excited. It is a little bit early, but at the same time, the skill is undeniable. My question is he, is it that time to say this guy is going to be in the Hart conversation? I mean, if I frame it this way, say Vancouver makes the playoffs against everybody's judgment, and this guy's got 85 plus points. I don't see why he can't be in the conversation. That makes total sense to me because, I mean, we said it. We thought Vancouver was going to be trash, along with probably the rest of the professionals, because that's what we are. So I don't know if he keeps this going somehow, then it's definitely a possibility. What do you think? What's the ceiling on this kid?
Well, I think just in terms of that, framing that question, the MVP races of today, November 6th here, I think he's got to be there. I mean, he's missed time. I think that can't be overlooked, the fact he had that injury. And he's only played 9 games. He's got 15 points in the 9 games. So point-per-game numbers have got to be right up there with seemingly anybody in the league, if not at the very top. And you also got to consider the fact that, when you think most valuable player, you should really break it down just as, it sounds. Without this player, how would this team be performing? And I think if this team just had a Bo Horvat and an injury-riddled Brock Besser, then I can't see them being here. So I think Petterson is very instrumental for their success. They kind of dipped when he was out. Since he came back, they've kind of elevated. So clearly there's a correlation there between his play and the team's success. So I agree with the O-Dog there. I think if you just did a vote right now, he's got to be at the top there. Now, obviously, the other question is, can it be sustained? I mean, I think the obvious answer is probably not. I mean, historically, rookies they can't keep this up. Teams eventually match up against them. The scouting reports come out. The results just decline eventually. So if I were a betting man, I don't think he'll be in the conversation by the end of the year. Rookie of the year, I think, seemingly he should be there for sure. But long term, probably not. But as of right now, definitely one of the most intriguing storylines of the league for sure.
And isn't he just making that 2017 draft look a little silly right now? Because we thought Nico Hischier was a safe pick. It was between Nolan and Nico at 1-2. And God, where did this guy come from? I guess he must have blossomed late. But to me, I look at this guy as, especially in his rookie year, similar to like a Matt Barzal type, but he's got a better shot. That's what I see, because he's got the vision, he's got the skating, he's got the passing. But I mean, this guy can shoot too. It's pretty crazy the tool set that this guy possesses, because we've seen him really snipe some pucks at the same time as creating these off the boards plays. So yeah, it's fun to see the confidence on him. And I haven't been excited about Vancouver in my hockey watching career. I think I am now, Nick, and it's crazy to say that, but I would now tune into Vancouver games even if they were just playing some schmuck team like LA. So yeah, that's where I'm at. I'm fired up for this guy, and boy oh boy is he making Nico and Nolan look like regular average Joes. But I digress.
Yeah,
now,
I agree. I think he's definitely put some youthful exuberance into that organization, especially with Besser coming in, last year and doing what he did, and Bo Horvat. Really, I think he's being overlooked here because he's had quietly a very good season.
Yeah,
and he's showing to be a complete player here, especially when Petterson was out. He kind of had to fill the void there. So I think between those three guys, and especially Petterson, this is now a must-watch team in the NHL. And among the Canadian markets, this was what a lot of. I mean, at the start of the season, this was an Ottawa, in our opinion. This was his team who could be at the bottom. But now, foreseeably, given the decline of the Californian teams here, and, Calgary kind of being a meh to start the year, I think you could make an argument that just maybe Vancouver could sneak into a wild card spot here. Mm-hmm.
It's definitely not out of the question. Now, to me, I look at the roster and I think, God, I wish they had a really solid puck-moving defenseman. If they had Quinn Hughes in a with a little bit more maturity right now, oh, I cannot wait for that. And Matt, Quinn Hughes is one of the most dynamic skaters and skilled defensemen coming up, and he's going to play with one of the most dynamic and skating guys already on the team. We're in for something here.
They're going to be good next
Vancouver,
year.
guys, you guys are crazy. Vancouver is going to be awesome to watch. This is going to be the future of the NHL. I mean, at its finest, is going to be right here and right there in Vancouver.
And I'm sure the fans there are digging it. And
Yeah.
I heard that stadium on that Rogers Place on Friday night was as loud as that night where the Sedins had their farewell game.
Oh my
So
God.
they hadn't had a more lively night at that arena since the Sedin farewell game. So the fact that this kid is kind of rejuvenating the fan base there and giving them something to cheer about, I think is fantastic.
Wow, good for him. So, do you want to get over to the firings now?
Unfortunately,
Does this hurt you, Nick?
this is very sad.
Oh my God.
Where do you
John
want to start?
Stevens.
You want to start with Johnny, eh?
John Stevens.
Okay.
Fellas. Sorry, we've been playing a lot of Red Dead. Fellas, John Stevens is out of here. He wasn't a good coach. We kicked him out. Some schmuck. Couldn't get it done. Couldn't wrangle the boys together. Oh my God.
Settle down.
John Stevens is out as the LA Kings head coach. He couldn't wrestle the team to score any goals this year. And they've become the embarrassment of the NHL, and they've become the poster boys for what not to do in the National Hockey League. So it's Nick's favorite team. So, yeah, I don't know anything about this new guy. I think it's his first job in the NHL. Assistant coach? What? Who is it?
Head coach.
Who is
Vancouver
it?
Canucks, 3 years.
What's his name?
Willie Desjardins.
Oh, shit. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't know that.
When we were in first year and they made the playoffs against Calgary, they
Yeah.
had that really good year surprisingly, and they made the playoffs against Calgary. He coached them that year, and then he got 2 more stints after that, and he did awful.
Oh, okay.
So
Really?
he would have coached them when we were in first year, second year, third year, and then he's been unemployed since.
Right. Well, I'm glad he's getting his shot, but honestly, it's like they're throwing the guy to the wolves here. Are they not, Nick? Like this, what can he do that John Stevens didn't try to get this team going? Because like seemingly, it looks like they may need to change fundamentally how they approach their entire offense. Correct me if I'm wrong here, but the personnel they have, they're going to have to go way out of their comfort zones here to get things going. And I don't know how far along Gabe Velarde is, but
Day to day still.
they need someone like this to plug in some youthful exuberance. And this is a guy, God bless them, who, when he was drafted, was knocked for his skating, which is, again, so LA Kings. This is so LA Kings. So, yeah, how do you see the tenure for Willie Desjardins playing out in the short term this season?
Well, the first thing I want to address John first because this is really sad.
Quenneville? Oh, okay,
This is very
sure.
sad.
Yeah, we'll pedal back right after then.
This was a very influential character in the 2 cups the LA Kings got in their most recent history, and he was very much a student of Daryl Sutter. And
End of a chapter.
End of a chapter. Daryl
Yeah.
Sutter, he led the team to the 2 cups. He was instrumental in putting in that heavy hockey system, that stout defensive system. And the belief was with the firing of Sutter and the hiring of Stevens, you were still going to keep that structure and you were going to still keep that underlying system. But you would now have someone who would be a little lighter on the players, a little more fun-loving and not as strict. And that worked last year. And he also, let them free up a little, and hence there was the explosion of offense. I.e., Anze Kopitar getting the 92 points, things like that. But with this firing, it shows me that the management in LA, whether it be Luc Robitaille or what's his face, Rob Blake, I think they're fed up with the system, and it's time to move on. They see where the NHL is trending. They see all the teams they're losing to. They see the speed they're playing with, and they're saying we got to change the way we play. It's dated. It's not going to work in today's NHL. It's slow. And we're going to bring in a guy who can hopefully fix the issue here. And just to give you a little bit of a lowdown on Willie Desjardins, he had a good stint in the WHL, coaching the Medicine Hat Tigers. Had some very good years with them. Won AHL Coach of the Year one year, I believe. He also won the championship there. WHL. He won the championship there. Jack Campbell, the goalie of the LA Kings right now, he played for him then. Apparently those teams were quick strike offensive teams, played with a lot of pace. So I'm sure that's what they're trying to bring in. Then he coached in Texas, was very successful in Texas in the AHL, won a Calder Cup with them. So this is a guy who's won at every stage of hockey he's been to, whether it be the WHL, the AHL, and now he's in the NHL where, if you look at his record overall, I think his record's just slightly under 500 with his 3 stints with the Canucks. But he did have the one very good year, which was his first year. And, I mean, for the Kings, I think the hiring here, it's looking for someone who is okay with just taking on a 1-year contract, because a lot of coaches aren't, down for that. They want some job security. But Willie seemed like a guy, from what I hear, who is excited for the opportunity, who's excited to lead this team and to change their culture. And that's ultimately why I think they hired him. So it's a big deal for that in that respect. And then also what a lot of people are reading over is the assistant they named, Marco Sturm. A lot of people don't know this guy. He was actually the head coach of that Cinderella Germany team, who led the German national team to the Olympic final against Russia. They beat Canada in the semifinal, and they played Russia in the final and almost beat them. I believe they took them to overtime. So that German national team, Marco Sturm, he got a lot of recognition there. He's been great as a coach in the German league. And he's a guy who a lot of people have been talking about as someone who's an NHL coach in the making. So I think I see Desjardins as more of a placeholder there for now, a year or two. And then Sturm eventually being the guy. Right now he's being groomed. He's going to be an assistant role. He's never been in that role in the NHL. But over time, I see him taking the reins there and becoming the head coach of the LA Kings. So, obviously I don't know much about Sturm other than his success internationally. So we'll see what happens there. But, there's your lowdown as far as Desjardins and Sturm go. One last thing I'll say is, as far as me personally being the big LA Kings fan here, I'm dejected. I'm depressed. I'm not happy about this.
Oh.
This may very well change my view of the team.
Wow.
I may no longer be a fan of this team very soon, because this is going to bring a cultural change. And I was a fan of that old style of hockey, and now, John Stevens, the last remnant, the last little blimp of that style of play is now gone. And you have this new coach, new culture, new management. Rob Blake obviously was new. He was just, put in last year. This might be a very different LA Kings team, a team I may not back, so to speak. So tonight, it's a huge game against the Anaheim Ducks. It'll be Willie Desjardins' home debut. Winnable game. Anaheim hasn't been playing too hot of late. We'll see. This first game will speak a lot to me about the future of this team, the style they want to impose here, and ultimately whether or not I follow this team anymore. And I don't know if a lot of LA Kings fans can relate to that, but that's how I feel, and we'll see here. It's going to be a very interesting next couple of weeks for the LA Kings.
Very well studied answer, Nick. Very impressive. It's tough to hear. I mean, people, when you don't live in that city and you like a team, you like them for various reasons. It seems as though you like them for their style of play, and that style just happens to be going the way of the dodo. So Wayward Soul Nick is going to be on the show for the next couple of weeks, unless these guys somehow do something crazy. But yeah, it's tough. Usually, when I follow teams that isn't where I live, and it's for little players who attracted me to that team, aka Pittsburgh with Crosby. I don't know what I'm going to do when Crosby leaves. Am I going to cheer for Pittsburgh? I don't know. It's tough to say, but it's definitely going to be a sad close of a chapter. So I hear what you're saying there. But yeah, a lot of changes, and just to touch on the Quenneville thing really quick, because I don't know much about the LA side, but I read a quote from Patty Kane saying that he wish he could have done more to help, win more games and be better for the coach. It sounded like the players really did like this guy, and he was a real legend in the city for a while, and it just seemed like maybe his time was up. No fault to his. He's not by any means a bad coach, but coaches do have a shelf life in this league. You can't stay in one place forever because you do. If you keep saying the similar things, and it doesn't always work all the time. So a new coach is not always a bad thing, even though you're getting rid of a very good guy. But it's going to be who there's going to be some coaches that are on the hot seat that are even on a hotter seat now, because I know people are going to want to scoop these guys up, especially Quenneville. People are going to be like, all right, what's our next excuse to fire our guy? Get friggin' McClellan out of Edmonton, please, for the love of Christ. But on to a very happy topic, a very triumphant game. I want to just point out really quickly here is Brian Boyle, New Jersey versus Pittsburgh on Hockey Fights Cancer Night in Pittsburgh. What a freaking story this is. So not too long ago, Brian Boyle got diagnosed with a form of cancer, and he recently said that it's in remission. So he's coming out on the right side of it. And boy, oh boy, doesn't he get his first hat trick of his entire career on Hockey Fights Cancer Night in Pittsburgh. What a heartwarming story. And we give our best from Rink Moose to Brian Boyle in New Jersey. We're super happy about it, and we love hearing things like this. We love a good storyline, and this one is to me is the best one of the week.
No, I can't say it any better. I mean, say what you want about how nice of a hat trick it was, but to me that means nothing. This was a really great story that I think transcends beyond sport. And the fact we got to see it in such a great manner for such a great guy. I mean, talk about a veteran who had never had I couldn't believe he hadn't had a hat trick in his whole career. Mm-hmm. And it happens to come on Hockey Fights Cancer Night in Pittsburgh. Just what a story. And I hope I hope this speaks to a lot of people, and it was really something to watch last night.
Yeah, and it brings me back to my memories of, I think last year he scored a clutch goal on another one of these types of nights. I think shortly after he learned that he did have cancer, the first game back, I think he scored a very, very important goal. So, yeah, it just shows you how far emotion goes in this game. We've seen tons of players who fight adversity and get play big games. We've seen it all over the place with different players, and it's a beautiful thing about the game. It's these little storylines that get to you. But I did want to bring up another player before we end the show here. Actually, a couple more things. I want a couple more things before we get to our friend Andrew's famous segment here. So I sent you a couple of screenshots, couple of news clips about Jonathan Drouin before last night's game. And they were negative, Nick. Very negative indeed. There were some Montreal radio guys on the TSN feed over there. Mitch, it might not have been Mitch Gallo. It might have been the other guy, but they were just having a shit on Jonathan Drouin. Various sources said he was selfish, uninterested, not passionate about the game, not a team player. And boy, oh boy, I guess he fucking must have seen these things, because he responded in a big way last night against the Islanders. He was fantastic last night. He was absolutely flying. It looked like vintage Jonathan Drouin. And I know you have him in your fantasy league there, Nick, so I know you were pleased. But, what did you think of the response from this player? It must be just a breath of fresh air after some of the stuff we've been saying and people have been saying about this guy. Is this here to stay, or is this guy just, showing up one night?
See, I don't want to read too much into this, and I know I don't know the player nearly as well as you do, but I know he had that very good point streak a few weeks ago.
Cut his hair?
Ago. Well, I know the haircut thing, but the reality is he had a good week or two, and then he kind of shut things down, had been pointless for like 4 straight games, and then he came out with this performance. 2 points, 6 shots on goal, power play point. It was a good night. But I still, with this player, just how streaky he is, and how just moody he is, both on and off the ice. I really don't want to read into this too much. I was going to drop him earlier this week, and I saw they had 3 games and 4 nights against the Islanders, the Rangers, and the Sabres. And I said, all right, let's give the kid a chance. So my hope is he builds off this. That's just my biased, feeling, given I own the guy in fantasy. But as looking at this objectively, I would not read into this too much. Let's see this. Let's see how this plays out.
What do you think Jojo says if he's in that cab there, Nick? Boys, stop saying mean things about the coach.
Yeah, all right. I would love to be a fly
Oh,
on the wall.
come on.
A fly on the roof of that car if Jojo's in there. Boy, oh boy.
No, I'm sure he's got nothing but good things to say about Claude Julien.
I'm sure they've had their differences. Let's be honest.
The last thing I want to bring up, I think we talked about it before until we get to our famous friend Andrew. Mike, I just want to quickly divulge my quick trade between me and Mitchell Arnold of our Schmucks League. I gave away Kessel and Fleury, Penguin Influence, and I received Stammer and Carey Price. And what happens here? I get a phone call from Braden. He says, fair trade, man. I don't know what to say. This could go either way. From what I heard from Mitch, fair trade again. I asked Nick over here, and he goes, Kyle, you lost this trade, and it's not even close.
It is true. I mean, the reality
you're absolutely
is,
ridiculous.
I break this
Folks,
up. I can break this up into 1v1 and 1v1. All right,
Rink Moose.
Listen up. Let's go Price and Fleury. Okay,
let's do it. Yeah.
The reality is, okay, Fleury, he might be a tad bit more injury prone. We've seen him miss some games in the past, but he's been healthy so far this season. And the reality is the Vegas Golden Knights are a lot more of a defensively stout team than the Canadians. Say what you want about Shea Weber being in there. He's still an old man. Vegas Golden Knights without Nate Schmidt have still looked good defensively. When they get Nate Schmidt, I'm sure they'll be back at their Stanley Cup form of defense. This is one of the most stout defenses in the NHL. And, I mean, Malcolm Subban just hasn't proved to be a backup yet in the NHL. Antoni Niemi has proven he's won some games for the Canadians. Just look last night against the Islanders. He came up clutch in that shootout, stopping all 5 attempts by the Islanders. So I look at A, volume of starts, and say what you want about injuries, but I still see Fleury being up there in that regard. And then B, in terms of splits, okay, maybe he won't have the save percentage of Price. Maybe Price is that great, one-of-a-kind goalies. But, consistently, if you have one of the best defenses in the NHL in front of you with Nate Schmidt, which, he'll be joining the team this Thursday in Ottawa, I mean, to me, that's just, there's a lot more security there. So to me, Fleury wins out on Price. And then as far as Kessel and Stammer go, to me, Stammer hasn't looked the same for a while. He just doesn't have that same step in his game, that same foot speed. He just doesn't look as electric. He's got that shot, and we saw that on full display against the Canadians this past Saturday. But to me, Phil, he doesn't get injured. He's always there to play. Say what you want about, how fat or out of shape he is. But the kid's, he's not a kid anymore. But the guy, he shows up to play every night. He's going to be on that top PP. They're not going to bench him for any reasons or else he'll just whine. And he's got a wicked shot. For a big whiner, he's got a wicked shot. He's still playing with Malkin, who is, right up there with the point leaders in the NHL. I mean, to me, it's just, I see his line mates. Stammer, he's not consistently with Kucherov. John Cooper, he kind of plays around with his lines. He may put Kucherov with Johnson and Palat sometimes and have Point with Stammer. So I don't know. I think both races are tight. Don't get me wrong. I think Fleury, Price, and Stammer, Kessel are tight. But me personally, for those reasons, I see Kessel and Fleury being, dominant compared to Price and Stammer.
Before the season began, I said that Vegas was very tough for me to predict. I said, we don't know if last year was a full fluke, half fluke, 40% fluke, or no fluke at all. But I'm telling you right now, as a Fleury owner, I had little to no confidence that this guy would win me any games. Sometimes he'd come out and have like a 35 save shutout, and that's great. And I was very happy. But most of the time, he was stinking the net up. It was terrible. Vegas, I've lost a lot of confidence in their play. I don't think, I know Stastny, I know Pacioretty's out, but I don't think, and Schmidt, but I don't think they have the same kind of, they don't have the same vigor as last year. Psychologically, they're not the underdogs anymore. They just came from the Stanley Cup final. Again, Pacioretty is a slow piece of player. Stastny's no fleet of foot kind of guy. They may have lost a little bit of identity here. And let's look at the other guy. His name is Carey Price. I mean, if you want to talk about an outlier season, last year Fleury had a very good season for his standards, and last year Price had a historically bad season for his standards. So if I get average splits out of Price and 35 wins, I'll be over the moon. If Price gives me a 920, over the moon. And you mentioned Nate Schmidt's coming back. Nate Schmidt's coming back, yes, but Shea Weber's coming back as well. And you can't tell me that this team is going to be the same or worse with Shea Weber back. Shea Weber is going to take away some goals against 120%. What does this allow you to do? It allows you to put Shea Weber on the top talent on the other team, and it allows you to put Jeff Petrie, who was fantastic last night against Barzell, on the second line of other teams. So that's an improvement there. And if we go over to Stamkos and Kessel, I'll say one thing on Phil Kessel. Great player, consistent, never gets injured, 40-plus power play points last year, and he had I believe, a career high in points with 92. 40-plus power play points has almost never been done twice in a row in the history of the NHL. So that's going to come down. I can see him getting 80-plus, sure. Now we got Stamkos over here. He had also a 90-point pace last year, but the difference is he's done it his entire career. The last 3 years average, he's averaging about an 86-point pace, and that includes the start of this year. So he's right now shooting at his worst shooting percentage of his entire life. He's shooting at a 9.5 last year. This year, I mean, he's regularly a 14-15% guy. I just don't see how Kessel can be a winner in this comparison in particular. And if you look at his advanced statistics, everything's due to go up. I mean, his points per 60 is way lower than it should be. His 5-on-5 shooting percentage is 4% lower than it should be. Everything is pointing in the direction of Stamkos skyrocketing upwards. And at the very, 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 very least, it's an even deal. If not, Kyle's the winner.
I mean, those are good points, but again, I'll stand with what I said. I could see something happening at the tail end of the year where your good friend Johnny Cooper goes,
"Oh boy,
you know, boys, we locked up first in the Atlantic.
Sit the guy.
Let's just say Stammer's injured. Let's say he's dealing with something day to day. Sit him and Cooch for the last 3 weeks of the season where Kyle really needs him for his playoffs." Yeah. And there's the deal right there. The fate of the deal, the winner is sealed at that moment. So, yeah. To me, Pittsburgh, they're going to be fighting for a spot at the tail end of the year, just given the competition, the Metro. So that's just one little other point I want to make there. So yeah. We'll see if I'm right. We'll see if that's even something to think about. But to me, it seems like something that could very well happen, especially with Stammer being a guy who, you know, given the past 5 years, whether it be the blood clot or that other issue he was dealing with, more of a physical issue with, you know, muscles. You know, we'll see what happens. I just think there's more security in Phil, but I digress.
Yeah, just peace of mind wise, I'm so much more happy looking at a Carey Price on my bench than a Fleury.
Does it not concern you that one team has overperformed according to most pundits to this point, whereas the other team with Fleury has underperformed? You know, what most pundits are saying, because one player can only do better and the other can only do worse. That's basically what they're saying.
Yeah, on a team perspective, I think you have that correct. But I think on a player perspective, I think
But the team is dependent on the player's dependent on the team with a goalie, right?
yeah.
So he's not going to get the wins. He's not going to get the low GAAs, right?
Well,
If
maybe
they're
I'm
only-
saying I'm more of a believer in Montreal than I was before.
So you're more of a believer of Montreal keeping this pace than Vegas staying where than Vegas escalating and going up. You're more of a believer than Montreal keeping the pace than Vegas all of a sudden shooting up when they get Stasny and Pacioretty and Schmidt back.
I think Vegas is going to go up a little bit, but by no means are they going to be where they were before. I think they are a likely wild card team.
Okay. I'm of the opinion if you get your number 2 center back, one of the best two-way centers in the league, and you get your number 1 defenseman back, that's pretty significant. And
Yeah.
I anticipate the results to improve. And it's not like Fleury's been total shite to start the year. I mean, literally that night you traded him, he posted a shutout against Carolina.
Yeah.
So,
But before that, he did have well
he
below
had
a
some
900.
he had some rough nights.
Yeah.
But with 3 big pieces missing, not to mention those 2 that I just mentioned. I mean, to me, Vegas in that light Pacific division, they're going to be playing LA a lot more often. They're going to be playing Anaheim very often, Vancouver very often. Montreal, they're going to have to play Tampa, Leafs, Boston. I mean, that's a lot of firepower. So I like owning goalies in the Pacific Division. You see that in the other league where I have Jones and Gibson and I have Quick in the other leagues. But that's just a preference of mine.
Yeah. Well,
we'll see what happens.
We'll
we
see
can
what
debate all
happens.
day, but we'll see what happens.
yeah. I'm pretty pleased, and to be honest, when I did make that trade, I was on the train home, and I thought, hey, why don't I just shoot a trade off? And I never thought he would have accepted it. But I didn't really think too hard on it. So when he accepted it, I had to think, oh my God, did I actually did I make a good trade here? And then but it's all good. Like it's just peace of mind because my goaltending has been a colossal wreck.
Not as much as mine, but yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, we're at the we're battling for worse goalies here. I just dropped Talbot, which was long overdue. So now I'm just going to be, finding Band-Aid solutions all over the place because he's burning a hole in my roster. But not enough about my problems, All right, and on that note, guys, it's officially time to end episode 15 of the Rink Moose podcast. We hope you guys enjoyed it. We had a lot of fun making this one. We're in the same studio finally together, and that felt pretty smooth. So, I hope you guys liked it, and this is Rink Moose signing off.